Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about Blend Bunny's new palette, Diabla. I have been so excited for this one for so long. It was supposed to be a Valentine's palette, but there was a holdup in customs, so they all arrived a little bit late, and I just finally got mine 2 days ago. So I have been so excited to try this out. So let's go ahead and take a look at it because this is gorgeous. There it is. And I just want to talk about, I've been reading under some of the posts on Reddit and other communities, Instagram, etc., about Blend Bunny's layout. They used to do things kind of in a gradient, so you'd have like light colors at the top, dark colors at the bottom, and they'd kind of stay in their color family, so everything would line up nicely. And they were really pretty, and I liked them because they worked really well. Then they kind of had an era where things were just kind of all over the place, and that was not really my thing, and I think a lot of people didn't really care for it. But now they've moved on to this idea of arranging things kind of in quads. So this palette has that as well, and honestly, a lot of people don't care for it, but I love the new quad layout. It works really well for me when I'm designing looks. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about some of the looks that I did with this, and you'll see that the quads are working out because I kind of stuck within quads when I was working on my looks. So let's go ahead and talk about the first look that I did. I'm going to put that up here so you can see it. This one I really focused on blues, which I thought was really fun. I used this color only as like a light shade in my inner corner area and kind of the first third of my eyelid. And then towards the middle and the outer lid, I used this color Angel Bite, and just sort of blended that all around to give it some dimension. And then in the very, very outer third, and just kind of as like a liner on the lower lash line, I used this shade, which is XOX, and that's like a really nice dark blue. This one is really pretty. And then because I wanted to add a little pop of color, which is sort of a silly thing to say when you're talking about a look that's all blue, but that's kind of been something that I've been enjoying lately, is like an entirely monochromatic look that has just like a little bit of a different color, and it sort of makes that bit really stand out, which I have been enjoying. So for that I used this shade Falling, and I put that like on the underside of my lash line. And as you can see, like, I think it just elevated the look and made it look really cool. As for the shimmers that I used in this look, I went in with this shade Izzy, which looks kind of like a whitish in the pan, but on my lid and over that blue, it really just turned into sort of like a purple sparkle topper that was really pretty. And on the outer side, I went in with this darker shade Blue Velvet, which I thought was a cool transition. It was like a light to dark shimmer transition that I've been having fun playing with lately. And in this look, it turned out pretty neat. As per usual, using the mattes was very dreamy. Blend Bunny has nailed their matte formula, and it's just gorgeous. I didn't have trouble with any of the shades. They were super easy to apply, super easy to blend. Nothing new here. Love it. The shimmers were a little bit trickier. This shade Izzy felt pretty dry, and that's not my most favorite formula in a shimmer, so that was kind of a bummer. But Blue Velvet was a little more emollient, like it had a nice kind of feel to it. So I did like this one. I'm interested to swatch the rest of the shimmers with you, to kind of see the ratio of dry shimmers to like shimmers that are a little easier to work with. So we'll see how that turns out. For my second look, I wanted to go kind of back to my goth kid, scene kid roots, and do this like black and pink combination, because I feel like that really works well with the palette and the colors that they have laid out here. So for this one, I kind of moved a little away from working within the quads. On the sort of front side of my lid, I used this shade Lust. And that It's a nice light pink, but it wasn't quite as light as I wanted it to be. So I went in with this shade White Hot and sort of blended that in so that the outer bit of that shade looked a little bit lighter even than it is in the pan here. Then I used this shade Kiss, which is like a darker pink, a little bolder too. And I used that on sort of the halfway point and out side of my eye. And then I blended Lust and Kiss together in the middle. And then I did a little bit of Kiss in the crease, not much, but just a little bit. And then moving up, I blended it into that lighter pink, and then moving up, I blended it into the white. So it does have like a nice gradient. I've been enjoying playing with gradients lately, and Blend Bunny palettes are just so perfect for that. And then to really add something to the pink, to get that black and pink theme going, on the first half of my lid, I used the shade Pop. And this is like a nice light pink. It's not quite as bold as Kiss, but it's nice and light. And then I went in with Into the Void on the second half, and I did some pretty aggressive blending there in the middle. So they do kind of like come together and blend into each other, even though they are such different shades, a light pink and a really black. Then I also used this shade Into the Void to kind of line a little bit under my lower lash line, just a little bit, but enough so that you can tell it's there. It's very Scene Kid. I definitely wanted to have an emphasis on the black liner. Now, I think this look would have been really complete with like a pretty dramatic wing, but that unfortunately is just not something that I'm very good at. So I'm going to continue practicing. It doesn't really work very well with my eye shape either, which I think is part of why I have so much trouble. So I'm still finding a technique that will make that look really cool, but I'm not quite there yet. Now, as far as the shimmers that I used for this look, Pop did have like a really nice feel to it. Not wet, like I wouldn't describe them as wet or squishy. They're not nearly there, but they're midway enough that they're nice feeling shimmers. Into the Void was a little bit dry. It almost feels like a matte that has some shimmer in it, which could be the case because even when I used my angled liner brush, which normally doesn't pick up shimmers very well and I kind of struggle, it picked this up like perfectly. So now that I have taken you through those looks, let's go ahead and start swatching these shimmers. We've got a lot to get through. There's a lot to get through because this is a 28 pan palette, which is quite a bit, and it does have 11 shimmers. So not quite half of the palette is shimmers, but there are a lot in there. So we're going to get started right away with this one on top, Into the Void. Okay. Wow, that one has some great opacity. So this is kind of what makes me feel like it might be a matte with some shimmer in it rather than like a traditional shimmer. Usually when a shimmer feels kind of dry, the way that this one feels dry, it's difficult to get like a really good swatch of it that's really opaque, but this is excellent. So it kind of reminds me of a matte in that way. Okay, we're just gonna go down the line. So next we're gonna use Froze Over. And can I just say, I really like this name in a palette themed Diabla. Hell Froze Over. Wow. So this one felt a little drier too, but it actually is coming off really nice also. This one is like a nice white or transparent, but it has like a blue silver sheen to it. Very pretty. Okay, going to the next column, we're gonna do Pentacles. And can I just say how much I'm loving these shade names? Pentacles and the Tarot are supposed to be like the earthy suit, and so to make this such a nice earthy brown, like it just works so well. This is a gorgeous color. Look at the opacity on that shimmer. I love this. Okay, and now we're gonna go with Blade. Okay, this one doesn't have as much color. I'm gonna grab a little bit more. Okay, so this is a nice bluish silver. It's more opaque and less of a topper than this one, and a little bit less blue than this one as well. Okay, we're gonna skip over here to this shade Forbidden. And this looks like a really just deep dark red. Oh my gosh, yes. Look at that. Ah, that's a gorgeous color. It almost has like a slight bit of purple to it. I can see it. I can't see it so much right here, but I see it in my mirror right there. It has like a nice purple. This is so pretty. Okay, and last on this arm, we're gonna go in with this shade Pop. Yes, and this one, gorgeous to work with. It's just a super nice light pink, great opacity. I want to talk again about how much multi-chromes have kind of taken over the indie shimmer world, and how much I appreciate it when a palette makes an effort to just have shimmers of a certain color. And that's just me being kind of picky. It's just because multi-chromes can be so unpredictable when you're using them with any kind of color underneath, and I like to use a lot of color underneath. I just think it looks nicer personally. So it's hard to know what my multi-chromes are gonna do. So I love just a nice straight shimmer where I know exactly what it's gonna look like. Okay, so we're gonna start on the next arm with this shade Inferno. Okay. Oh wow. This one has a really nice opacity too, and it's like a pinkish reddish. It's not even like a straight red. Ooh, that's pretty too. I'm liking most of the shimmers so far. I feel like there have been a couple that have been just a little to me, but mostly they've been great. Okay, let's do this shade Falling. Okay, I got a little extra on here because this is the shade that I had the most trouble with. And yeah, even with that, you can see it's just like not spreading as I would hope. But it is a gorgeous shade. That blue purple shift is so pretty. Putting it over the blue like I did earlier, you mostly saw purple. I bet if you put it over purple, you'd mostly see blue. And probably if you put it over black, you would get some absolutely gorgeous blue-purple shifty. Okay, this one, Fate, over here, looks like a straight up white shimmer. So we'll see how that goes. Ooh, that is pretty. It's also a bit dry. I feel like I'm starting to notice that it's mostly whitish ones that have that dry consistency. I wonder if that's something about the pigment. Because this is so pretty. It's almost like the color of a pearl. It's not pearlescent, like abalone or something like that. It's just like a beautiful white shine. It makes me think of weddings. Okay, and let's swatch this last shade, Blue Velvet. Ooh, yes. This shade worked really well for me earlier. It's still working great. And this one does have a little bit of a purple shift to it too, which I feel like is what helped it blend so well with this shade. It's so pretty. So there you have the new Diabla palette by Blend Bunny. I have to say that I feel a little bit better about this palette than I did when I first started. Because the first look I did use this Izzy that was kind of a drier shimmer, I was a little worried that the shimmers were going to be kind of hit or miss, which was the case with Blend Bunny kind of a long time ago, but they've been perfecting their shimmer formula, so I was really hoping that this one would have good shimmers, and for the most part it does. I feel like Izzy and Fate are the two biggest culprits of kind of like that dry, a little bit more difficult to spread and blend kind of a shimmer. And I am noticing that that stands pretty true for a lot of white shades or topper shades in palettes that I've seen in the past few weeks. So I do wonder if that's something of a pigment issue that brands in general are just struggling to overcome. I'm not really sure. But I can say that the rest of the shimmers besides those two are really dreamy to work with, which makes me feel so much better about this palette in general. Because the mattes are so great, I'm just really happy that most of the shimmers are also really easy to work with. So those are my thoughts on the Diabla palette by Blend Bunny. I do also want to point out for those of you for whom this might make a difference. It doesn't matter so much to me because I store my palettes in drawers, but if you have a palette kind of organizing system that doesn't work well with thicker palettes, you need to know that this is a thicker palette. Like there's a lot of space here. Sorry, I had to grab something to compare this to so you can really see. This is the Ellis Garden of Stars palette right up against that Diabla palette. I'm trying to get it as straight onto the camera as I can so you can see the difference. It's not phenomenally thicker, like it's certainly not 2 palettes worth, but it might be like a palette and a third thicker. And it's because of this neat packaging that they did for this round. I know they wanted to make it feel sort of like vinyl-y, and it really does. It's quite vinyl, and it has like a squishiness to it, so there's got to be some kind of material in there that you can squish down, which is kind of fun. But if it's going to impact your palette storage or how you use palettes, do be aware that it's a little bit thicker than standard. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments about the Diabla palette or Blend Bunny, please do go ahead and say down in the comments below because I would love to talk to you about it. Thank you all so much. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.